Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs. Welcome to Warui Deshou's Stream of Thought. We are back, motherfuckers. We're all back. We're back to cover the Vinland Extra Saga Vaganza, as I'm going to call it. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 all in one. It's your buy one, get two free deal here on this particularly great anime. I am, of course, extremely excited, as you tell my voice. I am Shadon, here to, chat nonsense as always. And joining me in the new physical broom closet that he's been put in temporarily for the time being, it is, of course, my good old friend, the Soul Doctor.
Well, thank you for that illustrious introduction. It occurs to me that we are doing the same thing, only at a different time that the actual show Vinland Saga did. It came out with 3 episodes at the beginning and then made us wait.
Yes, you're right.
So now,
you're right.
after those 3 episodes that we've done on a weekly basis, then now we've made people wait, and we're doing the 3 at once. So
we're firing back at Amazon. We're just, we're kicking it back to them. Like, oh, you want to see how it feels, do you? You want to see how it feels? Jeff Bezos, you non-world hunger-ending piece of shit. Anyway. But on a less hyperactive, less extroverted, more serious note, I want to just quickly thank everyone, our audience, be they patrons or no, for their patience with us while we've been getting things in place. It's just been circumstances outside of our control that meant that we've not been able to do Vinland weekly up until this point, and hopefully things should be back to normal, with a caveat that I'll get to at the end of this particular stream, just with a look to the future. For the moment, though, since I am now currently a homeowner and I have free booze, I'm going to enjoy this plum porter. So, Doc, let's talk briefly about, while I'm doing this, what's actually happened in Vinland Saga for the past 3 episodes. Like, we'll keep this very brief because we do have a lot of ground to cover, but holy fucking shit, things be going down. Things be happening.
A lot happened, and so I'll cease scrolling. I'm scrolling here, trying to locate the Twitter polls, and it is a long, long scroll. But essentially,
spoilers: Fours is dead. That's like saying that Dumbledore dies on page whatever of Harry Potter.
I know. So
sorry, folks.
Essentially, we left off in the middle of the battle between Askeladd and Thors, and the mushroom-fueled berserker. And you enjoy that, don't you? It seemed like you really you got a lot out of that sip.
It is plum porter. It's got actual plums in it. How can you go wrong with that? This is the good shit right here. This ain't your regular beer. This is actual good quality crafted products, which I like. Like, if you haven't gathered by now, that's the kind of shit I like, be it an anime or booze. So, hey, there you go. Cheers, everyone, by the way.
Cheers. So, Thor's falls in that battle in a pretty incredible way, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, but, his son, Thorfinn, in a sort of berserk-esque way, to survive.
When you say berserk, by the way, I know we're not going to talk this in detail here, but there is a very explicit berserk reference in, I believe, episode 5, because we see Thorfinn sitting against a tree with a sword over his shoulder. Now, the thing is, he's tiny because he's still a kid, and the sword is regular size, so it looks huge against him, and it's basically Guts leaning against the tree with the sword over his shoulder in the same fashion. That is so explicit, it cannot be unintentional. That must be a deliberate reference to that particular, property. I refuse to believe otherwise. There's no way that's not the case.
No, it totally must be. But I think he starts following his father's killers, and firstly in an attempt to exact some revenge upon them, but then it becomes evolves into something different. It becomes about his survival, and then he slowly we don't see all of it, but I think we see enough of it, and I'll talk about that as we go along, but it kind of ingratiates himself into the workings of that group of Vikings and their war, their sort of conquest and pillaging of the English countryside and coast.
I mean, just to go back to the Berserk thing I mentioned before, does that mean we're going to start getting Askeladd did nothing wrong memes?
Oh my sweet God, please. No, that can't be true.
Have I ruined you?
Well, I mean that's not even like a tenth as bad as what you're referring to.
This is very true. Ah, dear. So yeah, Doc has given the very base summary there of what has actually happened in the intervening episodes, leading up to the episodes of the events of episode 6, in which Thorfinn indeed seems to fully embrace the life of a pirate, or rather which isn't all rum and yo ho ho shimmy timbers, but this is Viking piracy. This is the real deal, and he's pretty much responsible for the deaths of several dozen people. Yikes. Yikes.
Yeah. It's
thanks, I hate it.
It's really it's hard to watch, isn't it?
Oh my God, there's so much that we're gonna have to talk about, like with how this show visually depicts Thorfinn's like descent into apathy and just cold-bloodedness as it goes on. Like for what is essentially a very short amount of time in the episodes that we see, it is of course a compressed amount of time in the show, like as we see him grow older. But even then, you still can't comprehend how easy it is for him just to fall into, murder and violence as he does. But it happened. So, hey, fucking hell. Man.
Like, he's pushed to survive. And the show, in this way, it's similar, like you've talked about before on our past episodes, that, like, it shows war as this thing that's not a noble enterprise, as a thing that is unfair and brutal and like doesn't really honor the people fighting in it, like their virtues. It just sort of consumes everything. And
even Jesus can't stop war from happening. It's in episode 6. Even Christ himself, he's mistaken for delivering unto them a blessed little small boy with golden hair who reminds this old lady of her lost son named John. And right. Jesus, that comes to bite her in the ass.
Yeah, but I find that analogous to how it's treated war, like it shows Thorfinn's kind of like when he's pushed to survive, like he's on the brink of death, like there's things that he's gonna do that we're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, but like humans can do some really like just extraordinarily cruel and brutal things when they're pushed into a corner, I think. And
well, then one might beg the question into how much of a corner is even Thorfinn pushed into by the closure of the episode. Like, is it just routine for him at that point?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I have to think about it a little bit, because
I mean, to me, it just seems like when Askeladd says, "Hey, why don't you go scout, you little shit? Go get lost in the woods. Go find that gingerbread house, you little punk."
Mm-hmm.
Like, he only seems to be egging him on a little bit by doing that, because he knows, like, hey, you want to kill me? Kill me. Go do this thing. Go on, go do this thing. Off you go. Bye bye. So yeah, it's open to interpretation on exactly how pushed he is into a corner. Although, again, because I like dunking on that particular piece of shit, whereas in Shield Hero, that was a big problem because Naofumi was never pushed into sufficient amount of a corner to justify his actions. Here, the fact that Thorfinn doesn't necessarily seem so pushed is actually a good thing for the story, although not for him as a person or a character.
No, yeah, sure.
It goes to show how easily we can fall into doing evil, awful things just because we're familiar with them. I mean, for all the bad rap that it gets for having some incredibly fluky storytelling, Metal Gear Solid, and yeah, I'm bringing that up, would you believe? Insert your own, can love bloom on the battlefield joke for Vinland Saga. It actually had something right with the line that Snake says, I think, in MGS1, which is that killing is unfortunately one of those things that become easier the more you do it. And we certainly see that chance in episode 6.
Are you, by invoking this comparison, Here, are you saying Thor is dummy thick? Have you? Do you know about this? The dummy thick.
I know of elements of it.
Okay, so
I'm gonna go get another bottle of pink
Okay,
water in a second.
well,
I think I might need it.
you know, I mean, we don't have to. You know, you can. It's a thing that you could probably go to Know Your Meme and figure out, but it's a thing that they asked David Hayter to say, and he said it because he'll say he loves the fans. He loves the fans, and yeah. So.
Oh, are you gonna put as a poll at some point? Is Askeladd dummy thick? Or what about Bjorn?
Oh God.
Anyway, hello there, Connor. How you doing, man?
Yeah. Hi.
All right. So we have given like
get to the polls.
Sorry,
oh, sorry. Did you want me
yes,
to?
Go to the polls. Go to the polls. Cut to polls.
Go to the polls. Okay. So from episodes 1 through 3, here are the polls. Poll 1. Just looking at these. We do such a dumb show. It's really good.
Warui Deshou, it's probably bad. You know, we are both the name of our podcast and also the top rated review on iTunes at the same time. Like that's the comment. We're what we say on the tin. What can we say?
It's true. So our first poll is: does Askeladd write a column in an English newspaper called Ask a Lad? And 60% say yes, and it's shit. Should James Earl Jones voice Thor's in the dub?
Yes.
83% say, oh my god, yes.
Yes.
17% at least outed themselves as criminals when they voted no. So
did you? Well, if you didn't also turn yourself into the police when you did that, then you've not completed your duty here. Off you trot. I'm sorry, officer. I said that James Earl Jones shouldn't voice someone in a dub. Be like, my God, that's high crimes and misdemeanors. That shit.
My God, what a monster. Does Helga rule your world? Next poll. 70% say completely. And Bjorn's mushrooms. This is the entirety of the question of the poll. Bjorn's mushrooms. Your choices were bro in all caps, and
what we really should have added in was also an option for the Super Mario like power up sound effects. What? Can you imagine if he ate 3 of those in a row? And he's just there. Like we just see a scene of him like killing people on the battlefield, and there's just the like the music that plays when Mario's invulnerable.
Oh my God, that would be that would be so good. So it'd be like him eating a star at that point, instead of a mushroom. What if he just turned big and started stomping on people? That would also be entertaining.
Can you imagine Bjorn in a Snooki suit? Well, that's it.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's quite an image.
Cheers again, folks.
The Hammer Brothers suit is probably the most like, oh yeah, I could see this working out. I mean, Tanuki suit's pretty hilarious.
Well, that should clearly be a poll. What Super Mario suit is Bjorn best suited to?
There's an often forgotten one from the third game, the frog suit. Do you remember the frog
God,
suit?
you're right. No, I know of it. That
would be tremendous. Okay, the final poll is: did Thors find his ore at the local Pizza Hut? And 58% say it was actually at Papa John's, the big pizza oven ore, which will row no more because the man who wielded it best is no longer with us in the show. So, rip Thors.
Oh shit! I ordered a fucking pepperoni from him. When am I going to get it? God.
Well, it'll be free at least, because the delayed
Well,
delivering.
what do you mean, like several hundred years? 'Cause
Yep. Yep.
holy shit! I hope I at least get a bigger garlic dip for that.
It'll just be a pizza skeleton. If a pizza head.
My God, I don't even want to think about it. Probably tastes better than most pizzas I've had in my life, to be honest. A lot of them have been shit.
Cat
right.
suit Bjorn, also pretty good.
All right.
Just a moment before we get into this, and I have to briefly step away, but I should be back quite soon. So see you folks in just a bit.
Hang on tight, folks. We're back shortly.
Hello. Sorry about that, folks. We're back again.
You didn't come back wearing a Viking helmet. I'm incredibly disappointed.
But I did come back with, I remembered my research project. You know, I had finding the Viking accent for our podcast. So I've done a lot of digging. I've read a lot. I feel like I've educated myself pretty extensively. And here we go for the Vikings. Hello, Shadon. It is I, the Viking. You know, we are on our boat out here in the sea. I wish we had our cows. But we are on the boat, and, you know, at least we get to kill some English. You know, this is, the things that we Danes live for. But, you know, I mean, who knows? We are out here. We are in the cold. It is very cold to me. I'm not used to this chilliness, but, you know, the Searles was a good guy. He was okay. You know, I had to die, I think, for the good of the TV show, I guess. But his kid is here. You know, he is killing people. It is a whole mess that we've gotten into. Shadon is back now. I slipped into the shell.
A fucking coma listening to your bloody accent. Oh my God. What are you trying to sound like there? Pepe Le Pew? Oh my
no,
God.
it is the Viking. It is historically accurate Viking. You know, it's
Viking my
the
ass.
The quality I bring to you, it is very high. Quite high.
Well, chat, what do you think there? Do you think that was an authentic Viking impression? Please leave your
Did
comments
I fail
here.
again? I can't have failed again. I read so much about it, I'm telling you.
Well, you know, if we had any French viewers at this point, like, you check those demographics next month, we're going to be in minus figures. God's sake.
Man, well, Wikipedia failed me, so...
Oh, what a
curse
surprise.
Curse it. Okay, no.
I mean, you work at a university. How many times have you personally told your students not to use Wikipedia?
You know, I actually tell them it is okay to use it as a jumping off point, but not as a end-all be-all.
Good quacker. So yeah, listen to that's
Listen to my own
advice for this episode. Use Wikipedia as your starting point, but don't actually cite it for anything meaningful or substantive, because you will get, you know, it will go wrong, go horribly wrong.
Yeah, don't do that. And I would say just don't tell your teachers that you're doing it. I mean, we all know that you do it, but just avoid mentioning that you started there. It will make librarians sad, and probably your teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Vinland Saga.
All right. So we've given. Sorry, go.
No, I was probably just going to say what you're about to say. It just that we probably are going to skip over. We are going to skip over the heavy summarizing because there's so much material and get right into the talking. We'll be more back to our usual standard format when we're doing this weekly.
Quite right, yeah. So we're going to assume that you've seen all the episodes thus far, 4, 5, and 6, and of course 1, 2, and 3. I hope you weren't jumping in at that particular point because, yikes. So we're going to get started on talking points immediately because there's a lot of ground to cover here. I'm going to lead off here, and I want to talk about the ending to episode 4, which of course is, the episode in which Thors dies. Yeah. But we have to talk about what happens after he dies in the immediate aftermath, so to speak. And just for quick context here, we don't find out, firstly, the fate of, everyone's favourite weed, dealer, Leif Erikson, or Harry, or any of the other men, not until episode 5, in which it is confirmed that they are indeed safe and sound. Askeladd was at least true to that word of his bargain with Thors that he would let them go. So, context-wise, we then find out that, Thorfinn is, actually stowed away on... I don't believe it's one of Askeladd's ships. I think it's one of the 2 Viking longboats that were taken by the group, and then Askeladd took as a prize. So he's stowed away on there. And suddenly he's found himself, on there being towed away by Askeladd. And I want to just really stress how powerful this image was and how effective it was at communicating the current new status quo of what I presume will be the rest of the show's run until Thorfinn finally kills Askeladd. Just to give you some more details here. This ship is being towed. We get a picture or an image of the oars, including Thors' own gigantic pizza oven, oar, disused. And no one is actually on the boat with Thorfinn. It's just him on his own. And I think this is such a perfect metaphor for the relationship he found himself in with Askeladd. It really, encapsulates the fact that he's just being towed along and dragged with him. Just a little bit out of distance, directionless, rudderless. He's not controlling the direction that boat's going in. It's Askeladd who's doing it, and he's always going to be one step ahead of him. It's such a powerful encapsulation of everything that sets off this relationship between the two of them. That he will always be 2 steps behind of him, never being able to chart his own course, literally. In his life, because he'll forever be in Askeladd's wake. Yeah. I thought, that's such an amazing starting point.
Wow. That's really good. I hadn't thought about that, but that is so good. That's really powerful, man.
Yeah. Does he? And the thing is, no one's in that boat. He's on his own.
Yeah.
It just is another great reminder of that. And I also have to also talk about the discontinuity of it. Can you imagine if happened to you, and I'm not even talking necessarily in the same context, but you at that age, Thorfinn's age, and your father passed away, murdered even. And we cut from we don't even see Thors' death really. We see him, of course, getting impaled with 10,000 arrows like he's King Leonidas from 300. But we don't see the actual point there. We don't see the immediate aftermath. We just cut in a very jumbled, disoriented way where Thorfinn's in darkness in the cellar or the hold of the ship.
Yeah.
And I think again that really helps sell the shock of it, that it is something that's not even comprehensible, not even something that could be processed really for someone that young. Especially given all that Thorfinn says about how awesome a warrior his father is. And Thors proves it because while Askeladd does win in the end, he only wins because Thors sticks to his morality. Yeah. Sticks to his code of ethics, which is that he won't kill Askeladd. But the whole moment after that point where Thors finally dies, or at least is mortally wounded, it's just fucking flawless. And I was blown away by how well it just set everything up for what was going to be going forward. And indeed, the next 2 episodes bear this out. When Thorfinn gets his objective from Askeladd, which is to win a great battle or do something great on the battlefield. Which, this is Askeladd we're talking about here, the man who would try and pay for food with a £3 coin or a $3 bill. There's no reason to believe he's going to give Thorfinn that jewel, even if Thorfinn is capable of fighting it. For all we know, he could just simply say, "Do something great on the battlefield." Okay, that was good, but that wasn't great enough. Oh, that was okay. That was pretty good. That was an 8 out of 10. But no, it wasn't great enough. It needs to be a 9 out of 10.
I feel like he wants to be honorable. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's like a little part of him in there that wishes he could do that, but I think he's afraid to.
Well, we'll actually be covering that later, as it turns out, in one of the Patreon questions we've got. So we'll be able to cover that more explicitly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, but that's how it came off to me in his kind of strained interactions with Thorfinn and everything else. And so to get back to the imagery you're talking about, like, you know, we have Thorfinn absorbing that kind of central lesson that you brought up in the first 3 episodes, that, like, you know, he's saying, you know, my dad won. Why is he dead? Like, he played by the rules. He stuck to it. He was the better man, the better fighter. And yet, he died. Like, why did that happen? What an existential crisis for a child to go through about, like, life being unfair. You know, you try to kind of slowly introduce that to children. But, I mean, it came down on him like a ton of bricks. And I do, like, I'm thinking about you saying, like, him being on the boat by himself. He's sort of, like, apart from the rest of the group in that he's going through all the shit. He's at a different stage in his kind of relationship to war and things like that than they are. But I also think that the show, I think it'll bear out ultimately, and we see this a little bit in episode 6, that, like, he's apart from them because he has still, like, this, like, it hasn't completely gone away, the kind of germ of goodness that his family was able to plant in him, despite, like, some horrible things that he does. And so I think he's set apart from them by himself on this ship, being dragged in the same direction as these other warriors, but, like, still apart, which is really neat.
My good friend.
So Jessica, like, brought up, you know, Thorfinn's voice actress is excellent in these episodes. Like,
oh my god.
So, like, that scream when, you know, it wasn't when was it exactly? What episode was it?
It was well, there was episode 6 when he made his first kill.
That is the one that I'm thinking of. Like, oh my god, I don't know if I've ever heard something in anime that, like, made my, like, just blood run
my
cold.
blood cut.
Yeah, that was intense, and that was, like, some strong stuff. But back to episode 4. Do you think, or what do you think about, like, what I like to call Thor's Obi-Wan Kenobi act? His whole, like,
what, you mean?
The true warrior carries no sword, and then he's holding, he drops his weapons and shit, and then he dies. Like, what do you make of that? Yeah, what do you make of that?
Well, for me, I think that firstly, Thor's has no idea, like, even, like, obviously he's dead now, but I don't think he ever anticipated that Thorfinn would end up getting separated from the group. Indeed, how that happens, we're not sure. For him, it seems simple, you know, my life versus those. And indeed, Askeladd does honour his word, so the rest of them do live. We see that when Leif breaks the news to Helga and... what was the name again?
Ylva.
I cannot remember. Why am I terrible? Thank you very much for that. Ylva. When he breaks news, like, so he has done that. I think that for me, and this is going to tie in something I was going to say, which is that I think, like, we in episode 6, of course, like, Thorfinn remembers his father, but I think now that, like, it's going to be a question of how he chooses to use the memories of his father and what his father had tried to teach him. But I think that ultimately there is, because this is also going to tie something else I'll talk about later, which is the whole setup of that entire ambush from a writing perspective. I think that in the end, I'm going to say that Thor's was a bit... He wasn't completely naive, because he did accept the possibility of conflict, which is why he retained the weapons that he had done. I mean, if he was a total pacifist, he wouldn't even have them, period.
Yeah.
But I think that, for all that he did ultimately win the duel with Askeladd, show again, war is what it is. War cares not for your honor or your virtue. If anything, it will chew them up and spit them out. So, I mean, you say Obi-Wan Kenobi. After Obi-Wan goes, like, in episode 5, Luke is still struggling. He's brash, impulsive. He makes some fucking stupid decisions. He gets disarmed, quite literally. Ho-ho. So I think that
down, I shall become more powerful than you can ever imagine.
By which I mean I can just deliver exposition at you as a fucking ghost.
I know.
That's pretty powerful, isn't it? Let's not kid ourselves. But anyway, the point is that I think that Oz is portrayed as a little bit naive, but I also think there's more to the construction of that scene, which I'll get into later, that I actually have to wonder is a good thing for the show or not, but I'll explain in a later.
Okay. Yeah, I'm unsure what to make of it because, he himself, he said, I am not a master. I'm not a true warrior because I still have these, right? And so that, he has his ideal, but even he didn't measure up to his ideal, but I'm not. I guess we'll sort of see what is going on, what he means, or at least how Thorfinn kind of like you said interprets all this stuff, because it's very paradoxical to me. The whole like a true warrior doesn't really need any weapons. I would, and I'm sure Thorfinn is very confused by it, and it's like we were talking about in the early episodes, like these teachings that he's kind of inheriting from his dad are very much at odds with the world, and they're going to be at odds with like the world that he gets thrust into and is now into, and is now a part of. So like, how, like, I mean, I think it's he's ultimately going to Thorfinn is ultimately going to like find his own way that is maybe in between the two or closer to
it's going to be a struggle
ideals.
for him for quite a while, I suspect. And that's going to be the driving force of a lot of the drama.
Yep.
I mean, 90s drama at the end of the episode 6, when, he betrays the village, well, not the village specifically, but rather the old lady and her daughter who took him in, nursed him back to health. He does try to warn them, but that doesn't ultimately stop him from going through with the axe, to set fire to the house as a signal for Askeladd's men to invade and rape, pillage, and plunder.
Yeah.
He's directly responsible for that.
I wonder how old he is at that point. And if that
his voice changes, so I'm gonna guess that it's probably 14 plus. I'm gonna say it's been quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's definitely at least hit puberty at that point.
Yeah, at that point, I just it's so sad. This whole thing is so sad. Do you have what else do you have about episode 4? Do you have that Askeladd is a fucking baller? Because I have that in my notes. Like the slide he does under the falling mast is like incredible. But
it's indicative of how he does things, like in which he will be, he'll be deceptive and cunning in order to win. It's a perfect, visual for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'll actually get into my point now that follows on from your discussion about Thors here. So let's talk about everyone's favorite term that is not something found in a probiotic yogurt. Let's talk about diegetics. Okay. Let me crib from fucking Dan Olsen again, because the guy knows his shit. But I'm going to ask you a question here, Doc. Who is ultimately responsible for Thors' death?
I mean, let me think. So I guess I would say it's Askeladd, right? Because he gives the signal to the archers? Okay, no.
No.
Is it Thor's?
No.
No? All right, who is it? I give up.
The author. The author.
The author. Okay. Yes. Right. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Let's deconstruct the context of the scene in which, of the whole ambush, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have the archers on the ridge. We have Askeladd's men on the boats. We have the blockade that happens. Now, in similar way as I say that the author is responsible for Thors' death here, the author is also similarly responsible for putting in a scenario in which he cannot escape from. So the reason I am bringing this up is to point something out, which is that Thor's ideals and morals are ones of non-violent resolution. He doesn't want to kill anyone if he can.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, he won't kill Askeladd at the end. And so then you can make the argument, if he did kill Askeladd, would that change anything? Because in theory, if he killed Askeladd there and then, Askeladd's men could have simply, because Bjorn seems like fairly tuned in as a second in command, could have just simply, shot him. I mean, to be fair, Thorfinn was being held hostage. But I think at that point, even before Thorfinn is taken hostage by Bjorn, Askeladd could have still been, Thor could still take his fucking head off. So the way I see this scene being constructed is that it actually supports in some way Thor's belief that violence doesn't solve anything, because even if he had killed Askeladd, it wouldn't have made things better for him. In fact, all of his men would have been slaughtered then, including Thorfinn.
That's true. I think you're right.
I think that if you deconstruct the scene in that particular way, that's the reason why the author of Vinland Saga chose to put Thors in that no-win scenario. Because it's, again, another rebuttal to the idea that violence would solve things.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can extrapolate, from that, it wouldn't have solved anything. But conversely, you can also make the argument that because Askeladd's men seem a bit like, skittish, in response to all of this, that maybe it would have solved something. And I think that ambiguity in hindsight may have potentially harmed it a little bit. I would have preferred it be a little bit more clear-cut, that for all, that Askeladd says, hey, fucking have me, it would have solved nothing. But nonetheless, I think that's the reason why this whole ambush was constructed the way it is, to sell that point that, simply taking Askeladd's head off and kicking it around like a rugby ball wouldn't have solved anything. They'd have all died. Yeah. Violence does not make things better, as presented by this no-win scenario, which has been deliberately constructed to sell that point in the first place.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Yeah. Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. That was a well-made point. So, do you think that maybe this falls under the umbrella of the patron question? You tell me. Do you think Askeladd was joking about Thor's becoming their leader? Or do you think there was like a moment when he initially asked it in which he was genuine?
Can I change my spirit animal to the duck and just duck out of this question? Because I'll tell you why. Because again, it relates to what I talk about, which is that even in the earlier episodes that we discussed, I talked about the idea of, Thorfinn going forward. Because we all had the writing on the wall. Come on, we all knew Thors wasn't going to make it past a certain number of episodes here. No. We're all reasonably savvy about this.
Right.
But that, again, in itself is not a problem, as I've said. What is the inciting event for the Thorfinn to then try and seek revenge and ultimately struggle, with his anger, with his hatred, with his, the loss of his soul and his humanity, as we start to see happen in episode 6. But then there's the question of, what his father has left behind for him. And I think that in some way we might learn later on about Askeladd's own history, because in turn Askeladd is teaching Thorfinn things, consciously or no, about how to, how warfare works. So I think that I can't really say with any certainty right now. I think there might be hints of that element that you speak of there to him. But one must wonder then, if he similarly had a history where he was all right to begin with, and then he became the pirate he's known for now. We'll find out. But I can't conclusively say one way or the other. I think there's evidence for both sides as it stands right this moment.
Yeah, I just think he's I love the way his character is presented and written in these episodes is tremendous. Like, he really could have easily just been like a one-note kind of shitty vagabond, right? But man, he just gets these little moments that indicate that there is more there, right? Like, just that whole scene of him saying, "Why don't you become our leader?" and just the look on his face, like it really did feel genuine, and there was like a moment that lingered, in which it felt like the offer was put out there and Thor's just really didn't know what to make of it. And because his men were unsettled, you know, and everyone was unsettled, he kind of like backed off on it. But like, and how in the next episode, he, when the people come to pay him for Thor's dead body, and they were like, well, the person who contracted you wants to know how his final moments were. And if you really want to be like,
you reminded me of this. Carry on.
If you want to be like honest about it and like empirical, and like his final moments were incredible. His final moment, like that is like, that was going to be etched into everyone's mind for the rest of their lives. Like
certainly Thorfinn's.
Yeah, well, and then everybody, like everyone, despite how they feel like he was naive or on the wrong side of things, like they see him and recognize his strength, you know, and they say like, I can't remember who said it, but was it Bjorn who knocked down the charging kid and said, Thor's is worth 100 people like you, like he's extraordinary. But Askeladd tells them that it was nothing special. Because it's not, I don't think, in any way to do down Thor's and the memory of Thor's, but like I think it's him saying like, you know, it's not special and that everybody dies. In war, nobody's final moments they're just all whatever. They all just die, and it's, you know, there's nothing glamorous about it.
Well, if I may offer another interpretation, bear in mind who that message is going back to. Is going back to Floki, and it's clear, like, you know, from the previous, you know, Kool-Aid Viking incident, that Askeladd doesn't give really two shits about Floki. He could, you know, take him or leave it. So maybe this is his way of denying, like, you know, Floki getting any joy out of, you know, seeing. Because if he relayed it as was like, oh yeah, Thor's kicked the shit out of everyone. But then I just completely, you know, backhanded him, made him look like a complete pussy because he didn't want to kill me. Which he could say, because that's kind of what happened, if you want to put it in those terms. Then I think Floki would probably have quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, you know, maybe you're right. Like, maybe because he sort of despises
denying
Floki,
him the satisfaction
he wanted
of seeing a man brought to his knees.
He wanted to, take that like joy away from him, and leave him with nothing. Yeah, I totally see that also as a thing. I think the readings are not mutually exclusive. Just because it can work on that level of emphasizing, like, you know, war cuts down and makes, you know, nothing more like weak mortals of like the mighty and the meek, right? And so in that respect, like in the end, in the final analysis, like, he felt just like everybody, but also he's a little bit of a fuck you to Floki of like, you don't get the story time that you wanted.
Nope, exactly. All right, so next point from me. Let's talk about environments, and let's talk about episode 5 specifically. Now, I want you to cast your mind back. So I think it was episode 3 when Thorfinn gets on the boat and he goes, Dad, the sea.
Yeah.
The fucking sea,
it's
Dad.
The ocean, yeah.
Like, and the thing is, right, that's all well and good, him going and losing his mind about the sea. Like, but let's be honest, the sea is very vast and you can get quite lost in it, of course. But it's nothing compared to the vistas we get when they actually arrive in England for the first time. And so I don't usually want to argue from the null hypothesis of this thing didn't happen and therefore there's meaning in it. I prefer to point to something that is concretely provable, or something that at least you can infer from. But what kind of reaction does Thorfinn have when he arrives on the shores of England and travels through the woods for the first time? These fucking lovely autumnal woods where the background designers completely went to town. What is his reaction?
I'm sorry, who, Askeladd's? Or
no, Thorfinn's.
Oh, I mean, like, he doesn't care, right? Yeah, he's not reflecting on it.
Yeah, I mean, compare this to the previous, like, discussions and times, like, you know, when Thorfinn in the very first episode was listening onto every word that Leif was giving about Vinland.
Right.
Like, and Thorfinn's own, like, you know, excitement about the sea. Like, clearly there is the spirit of an explorer in him and someone who like can revel in the natural beauty around him.
Mm-hmm.
But what's happened to him? His family has been destroyed, and he has been taken by pirates to a land of warfare and bloodshed. And he is consumed by vengeance, such that he cannot appreciate the beauty around him anymore. It doesn't even pass through him. It's never remarked on by him. We get long shots of him going like through the forest and all that with all these wonderful colours and hues of oranges and greens and yellows. And he says nothing about it. If you need any more indication of how broken he is and of how damaged he is, of how, suppressed he is in terms of his personality, that previous, explorative and inquisitive nature, you only need to look right there. Because he says fucking nothing.
Yeah, I mean, the old kid is dying. Like, in many ways, Thorfinn is this is his really slow and painful death and wandering around in Gehenna in hell, right before he was reborn as the scout for Askeladd, and yeah, I mean, he's the color is drained out of his world. I mean, that scene where, like, on top of him being entirely, like, just destroyed and broken, on top of him wanting revenge in such a, like, deep and profound way that's like, I feel like that's all he's living for at that point. He like has no food, and there are scenes of him trying to eat, like that scene where like he turned down the meat and then came back to it when it was raining later and was like
starving dog
eating the bones, like trying to eat the like tiniest little morsel, like but before the marrow, like when he fights the wolf, like he's like just biting the bones at the fire, like that broke my heart, like trying to just get any little scrap he could. That was that just tore me up, man. And yeah, and like you said, he's in no position to like notice the beauty or grandeur of anything to do with the environment, because
remember where he came from. Remember the icy wasteland he lived in for all his life.
It should really be.
It should be a wondrous moment for him to realize there's a land.
There are bugs.
There are bugs and trees and shit. Oh my god! Like this is David Attenborough's wet dream. But he can't market it. And again, that ties into the overarching theme of the show thus far, that war consumes people. It devours them whole and leaves them as nothing but empty husks, which is what he is turning into. As you say, there's that kernel, that shred of humanity left in him, but it is fading. It's in danger of being snuffed out entirely. And that, I think, also is going to tie into what the show's going to be about later on. Like, because I mean, it's called Vinland Saga, so again, Rice is on the wall. They're going to get to Vinland at some point. But that's going to be a world for them to explore. And I think like that, tension between warfare and, discovery is going to be key to, like, Thorfinn's character. Can he rediscover his humanity through the beauty of the world around him? Or will he forever be consumed in the fire of war? Stay tuned till next week on Vinland Saga, episode 7.
Right, yeah. Why do you think that... Why do you think the Vikings did not kill him when they so easily could have?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? Personally, I think that the Vikings answered to Askeladd, and so I therefore think the decision probably lies with him. And I think in some way, Askeladd maybe, thinks there might be some use for him. I mean, admittedly, he's a kid, so what does he know? But I think it also speaks that, for as much as we say that Askeladd might have a shred of honor, he's also a very cruel and capricious man. Like,
sure.
The things he does to the villages, like, say, no, just plunder him, take him, we're taking the women, we're having our women.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it speaks to his cruelty as well that he can do that. I mean, as I said before, I don't believe for a moment that he genuinely will give Thorfinn the honorable jewel that he, says he will. For him, like, say that goal of, like, the great axe on the battlefield is always going to be out of Thorfinn's reach, even if he literally assassinates the King of England himself.
Yeah.
Oh, he killed the king? Oh, bitch, please. Why do I care? I'm Askeladd.
Why would you? Yeah, I'm sure he'll try to talk him out of it, right? Even if it's not a like you didn't do anything. It's like, oh, you did something, but why would you want to kill me now? Like, you're just as bad as I was. How many kids' fathers have you killed at this point?
We are not so different, you and I.
If you only knew the power of the dark side. No, sorry, that doesn't even make any sense. Yeah, like, yeah. Maybe too, like, in some small way, Askeladd, do you feel like there's a little bit of, I'm trying to think of the best way to express it, like maybe owing Thor's something, like realizing he killed him when, and it took, a whole hell of a lot more than even he had, right? And to then snuff out the life of his kid, like maybe just leaving him alive as some kind of gesture towards Thor's. Maybe?
I'm not so sure. I still think the cruelty is the main element of Askeladd's character.
The cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
He does say a lot of the time, like, you're still alive? I think at the beginning that he leaves him on the ship because he says he'll die soon. Don't worry.
Yeah. The weak die first, such
yeah.
as you.
Mm-hmm. Then probably, like, as they go on, he starts to be like, like, he's lived through all this horrible shit. Like, maybe we can find a use for him. He seems like a tough one.
Yeah. Or maybe I can send him off on suicide missions.
Right. Maybe, too, there's, like almost a nationalistic element, too, where, like, I mean, they kill a lot of English kids, but, like, maybe it's like, this kid's a Dane.
He's a Dane.
Yeah. And at one point, doesn't Askeladd say, like, I'm not into killing kids? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bjorn says we're Danes, like, he's proud of that fact.
Yeah, that's true. And I think Askeladd at one point, doesn't he say, like, I'm tired of killing kids, or I don't want to kill any more kids today, or something like that. I don't know, but
can't recall that. But anyway, yeah,
it's multi-faceted reasons, and there's probably is even more we could dig into it. But like, yeah, this is part of the reason I find them so interesting. Askeladd, Askeladd today.
All right. Do you have another talking point, Doc?
Well, so that was one, and I guess I can give it like we should talk about Ylva, because this episode, she was pretty amazing, like really interesting to see the way that she processed her grief because she really didn't, right? I feel like she was in kind of denial. Not that she didn't know that he was dead, but just like, well, you know what that means. We got to work. We got to work harder.
Oh, do you mean Helga? Sorry.
No, Ylva, the daughter.
Oh, I'm getting mixed up. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ylva was just like, I got to fish. I got to shovel snow. I got to take care of the sheep. Got to do everything the men did. There's not a time in the world to relax, because and she doesn't want to stop, because if she stops, she'll lose it. And
it's a very natural, like, it's a very understandable way of denying the grieving process. Like, if I don't have time to think, how can I possibly think about the death of someone I care about?
It was so human, right? Because like you wanted her to break down and everything, but she's just not that kind of gal, right? And only like the sort of gentle hand of Helga, her mother, can say like, all right, honey, that's enough. Like, you can stop now. You can take a moment.
Yeah.
And then
indeed, Helga's quiet dignity for all this, I think that maybe that's from her own history of knowing that Thors was a soldier.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she probably was more aware of the fact that, it's a dangerous time to be traveling anywhere. So there was always that risk of not, of him not coming back. Indeed, I think, as we discussed before, maybe she had some inkling, even if it wasn't staged out right between them, that Thors may potentially deliberately not be returning because of the call to action, that he had been placed for.
Yeah.
But no, that entire scene was, I think it's actually good that we got to see them do that, because as I understand it from what one of our patrons, shout out to Splinkaji here, points out in our chat, I believe that those scenes are in the manga, but come chronologically speaking a lot later.
Oh, cool. Okay.
From what I think so, from what I remember that Bleakaji discussed at the time that this episode happened.
Oh, okay.
But I do think it's good we get that now, so we can at least have the processing of the fact that they know about it. So it's not we're not wondering in the back of our minds like what's happening with, because let's be honest here, the focus of the story is now fully on Thorfinn. Having that unresolved little moment of do they know or not and what's happening with them would have been a mild distraction. So I think it was wise to bring those forward just so we know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't doubt Leif says to them, I will not stop searching until I find your son. And I don't doubt that's going to happen. There will be a reunion of sorts between the two, because then we'll have the inevitable, you've changed a lot, Thorfinn kind of moment in which Leif is probably quite disgusted and appalled with who he is as a person and tries to, remind him of who his father was and what he's trying to touch. And Thorfinn's like, no, my father was a pussy.
You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through, Leif.
Yeah. I mean, my dad, like, he took his sword and all that, but you know what he left at home? His fucking dick. And his fucking balls while he was at it.
Oh, man. Oh, this just occurred to me. On our
what, balls and dick? Oh,
yep,
dear, that's an unfortunate segue.
I've awakened to their essences. So regarding, sorry to hop back and forth between topics, but we were talking about them leaving alive Thorfinn, despite him being kind of a thorn in their side. I guess not only do they leave him alive, but like the men, in particular, like the lower ranked men, like offer him like food and stuff. So maybe it's just as simple as, well, the contract was to kill your dad. We killed your dad. We got no issue with you unless you start one with us. It's not a personal.
I think they were mocking him. Like, I think they're treating him basically like as a pet.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. But didn't they say like they actually wanted to help when they were laughing at him because they're Vikings. Like that's what Vikings do, is they eat turkey legs and drink meat and laugh, right? And kill each other. And so they're laughing, and Thorfinn feels mocked and goes away. But they're like, no, wait, we actually wanted to help. But then they just shrug.
That's part of the wider theme. Maybe that's part of the wider theme, that even people as cruel and evil as them, who go around raping, pillaging, and plundering, burning villages down, not littering and all that, not throwing things away properly, not putting bottles in the recycling, you name it. Maybe even people as awful as them still have that little tiny bit way down deep of actually caring about your fellow man. Maybe if you look really, really hard, real close,
right,
and see it, I'll give up. Yeah, point.
Zoom in farther.
Zoom and enhance. All right. So I have another talking point. Let's talk about the beginning and ending of episode 6, and I want to talk about blood specifically, everyone's favorite bodily fluid. Unless you happen to be, like... Exactly. Yeah, you took the joke around my mouth there. Anyway, point being. So, we mentioned before Thorfinn's first kill or murder, whatever you want to call it. And he ends up soaked in blood after the fight. And that leads then to the piercing scream that you mentioned there. And I just want to point something else, a point of contrast. We get Askeladd's reaction to this, which is just like a... What? Huh? Like, the most nonchalant shit ever. Like, he's just been told it's, slightly dusty in his room or some shit like that. Like, the most non-important thing ever. But
I took it a little bit differently, but I don't know.
No, it's just like...
I'd have to rewatch it to know why I thought differently. But yeah, I felt it was like a look of sympathy, but I could be way wrong.
But the thing is, right, Askeladd himself is also covered in blood at this moment. So you have your contrast point. You have a man who's completely and utterly desensitized to violence versus Thorfinn, who is now cakes in blood himself and is screaming with, overflowing with emotion and shock and disgust. Having done that. He even threw up earlier in the same episode when seeing the dead bodies of the various soldiers, and now he's put one of them to death in much the same fashion. So it's no wonder that he completely loses his shit.
And I mean, however, I was gonna say, also to add to the distress and everything in his mind, before he kills the soldier, he has a near fatal encounter with another one, and Askeladd stabs that guy through the chest and then leaves, and Thorfinn is left to this little kid has to remove get out from under the dead weight of a body, a heavily armored body.
What a metaphor, by the way, for Thorfinn having to move on from the weight of death being on top of him.
Yeah.
Themes at latest, my god! Oh my god!
But I loved it.
You might think Vinland Saga is a well-written show. Holy crap!
Yeah, and we talked about. You might think it's a. We talked I mentioned Thorfinn's death, and this is part of him being reborn, and the old Thorfinn really having to die, because that innocent being is too pure. I mean, this is a stupid meme, too pure for this world, but it's freaking true in this case, right? And this new Thorfinn, baptized in blood here in this battle, and it's really awful. But to follow on from that, let's talk about the end of the episode. So I'll get into the surrogate mother character in a bit as a separate point. But note that after she finds him at the beach when the soldiers come and investigate the fact that he's torched the house down, he's already killed a couple of them at this point, and he is similarly soaked. And this is the point where we see his reaction so much more diluted than it once was. So we have a bookending start of his descent into this, psychopath, even if you want to call it that, this violent nature that's arisen in him. And at the start, he was revulsed at himself. He was screaming. He was, disgusted. And now he's just kind of apathetic. Almost. But there's something I want to... Oh, sorry. No, just a very brief, only just to insert what you're talking about and then what we were talking about just a second ago. Have you ever been present at the birth of a child?
No.
Okay, so...
I was going to say, I hope you have. I thought they got delivered by the stock. Doc, you've ruined it for me. Great. Now,
bubble burst.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's it's a little more messy, and when babies are born into the world, they are covered in blood and fluid, and they are screaming. And this is what I was thinking about Thorfinn when he makes his first kill, and when you mentioned the scream, I just had to vocalize that again.
Yeah. That's quite something, that's for sure. Yeah, you're not wrong there. That's a good observation. But yeah, there's something else I want to remark about the blood stains that end up on Thorfinn's face at the end of the episode, in which they seem very deliberately stylized. And what do I mean by it? Well, first off, there's a pattern on his cheek here, but it's very mottled. It's not simply blood splotches like splatters. It's I'm getting into some CSI shit here talking about blood splatter patterns. But I promise you there's a point, I promise you. And also his hair is similarly stained with blood. And here's the thing that I read from this, and maybe I am reading way too deeply into the visual design of, Thorfinn getting coated in blood here, but it felt like it was a part of his being, his hair was red with blood, because that's part of his nature. And the mottled, blood stain, it almost looked like some kind of disease spreading under his skin. It felt like a visual metaphor for the bloodlust that is consuming him, rather than how it's been presented previously as just, well, I don't know, clean up on aisle 5, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really struck me when I saw it the second time around on rewatching this episode. It almost looks like he's diseased.
Mm-hmm.
So that.
Yeah, maybe another difference, harkening back to him being on his own boat alone. Maybe another difference between him and people like Askeladd and others is, a lot of those guys volunteer or conscripted, and they come in under these really different circumstances, and it was totally forced upon Thorfinn as a child, and the genesis of it, the reason he began was revenge. And there's like this different kind of like madness in him, like you said, bloodlust. Like you get a couple different shots throughout the episode of him who he just looks completely mad, like he looks like a demon. And that is a different look than I've seen on pretty much anyone else's face in the show, except for Bjorn when he's mushroomed.
when he's high as a kite.
When he's Mario'd up.
Yeah. when he's going for the flag, he's going to jump the flagpole.
Yeah.
All right, I do have more talking points, but do you have any more you want to add, Doc?
I think I like the fact that I knew a time skip was coming. Or I felt it in my anime watching bones. But
we've seen plenty of those in our time, you and
I. But I feel like this one was not too soon. Like I was glad we got to see the things that we did of him as a kid. I think it was really, really important. And I think that because we got to see that, so there's like a sort of trope in a lot of shonen stuff, when you have like a group of villains. A lot of times one of them will hate the lead bad guy, and the reason that he'll be there was so he can be close to him, so he can try to kill him, right? There's like a pact.
The star screen.
Yes, thank you. That is a great example, right? Of like, okay, so there's a mutual understanding. I think that you are a good fighter. You can serve under me, and in exchange for that, if you'll do that, you can try to kill me whenever you want, whatever, because I'm better than you. And we kind of have that here, but it's like the best one ever, because we get to see how like Thorfinn comes to hate Askeladd, and I mean maybe he'll hate himself one day, but yeah, we get to see he's part of the villainous Viking forces, but clearly still I think would kill Askeladd at the drop of a hat if he had the chance to. At least that's what I think. And like it is the trope that we're talking about, but like because we're not introduced to it after all the interesting stuff has happened, like it's feels so much better. It's so much easier to buy in now that we've seen it all.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, good on Thorfinn for serving as inspiration for Inigo Montoya down the line. That's really nice of him.
Good one. Nice.
All right, so next talking point. Let's talk about what Thors has left behind here. Because, of course, when someone passes on and dies, they leave, you have memories of them. And indeed, Thorfinn has one memory of him, which is just him turning around and smiling, but that's all that we, the audience, have presented thus far in the show's run. What is the other principal thing that he has? The dagger.
Right.
So it seems very, very interesting to me that Thors, a man of non-violence, a man who was so unwilling to, kill someone in a fight when it came down to it, that the one material item his son now has in his possession that's left behind by him is a tool of murder. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, this ain't no light sword thing. Like, a dagger, as far as a weapon goes, is a tool that throughout history has been associated a lot with assassination. I mean, let's go back to fucking classic Macbeth here. Is this a dagger I see before me, before he goes and murders King Duncan? Or any other number of, stories that involve that. Like, it's not a weapon, strictly speaking, for, one-on-one duels or combat. It's, as I say, more of a tool for assassination and murder. So it's not even a question of Thorfinn, taking up the combat style of someone who would fight someone one-on-one in the duel. He just has that now more as a weapon of slaughter and a weapon of killing. Indeed, that's why he does what he does with being sent as a scout. And indeed, he goes undercover, kind of. We move a little bit of some regret or some reservation. Using the English lady to get into the position he needs to, maybe. Although he couldn't, of course, predicted that given he was floating down the river with an arrow on his back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it to me feels very, very telling that that's the one material thing that's been left behind, a tool his father wished him never to use. And how staggering is it when you think of it, that the legacy of his father is a weapon that falls and literally stains with blood. His father's legacy is literally blood-stained.
Gosh.
It's not even metaphorical, it's literal. Holy shit.
Man. This was such a fun episode, Shadon.
I know! Hey, we're back, everyone! We're having laughs and jokes. It's great. We get to see a child go through, the psychological equivalent of the Bens watching his father die and then committing mass murder and slaughter. Woo!
Anime, ladies and gentlemen. Have you speaking of Macbeth, have you seen the movie called Scotland, PA?
I have not.
So imagine it's a retelling of Macbeth, but instead of the Scottish throne, it's a restaurant that is being fought over, right? And so it becomes Macbeth's, but then in the end, after Macbeth leaves, do you remember who eventually sits on the throne?
Is it Macduff, is it? I don't recall.
It's McDonald. It becomes McDonald's. That's the genesis of McDonald's.
I felt actual pain course through my body then when you said that.
It's true. It's a great movie. I really enjoy that movie.
Oh, are the three all right, I have to ask, are the three witches food critics?
They are shit. It's they're all played by, what's that guy's name? Oh my god, I can see him in my mind. Andy
Serkis?
He's he's very skinny and has large glasses and has a very distinctive voice. God, I can't. What is his name?
And still a postcard, folks.
Oh, please help me remember who plays the witch. Witches. I can't remember if it's just three of him or they're all three combined into the one kid. He represents the witches, but yeah, it's him, and he's great. He's hilarious. Yeah. So, are you ready to talk about religion in this episode?
Go on then. Fine.
Yeah. So,
I jest. I'm no religious man myself, but I'm happy to at least throw my 30 pieces of silver in, so to speak.
Yes, of course. That's a joke that'll never get old. Just continue to be made on this show. So, reading my notes here. So, this is all to do with the woman who takes in Thorfinn, despite him being a spy. Because in a lot of ways, it's sort of a kind of a not inappropriate. What's the word I'm looking for? It's misguided, right? Kind of replacement for her son who died a couple years ago. They're about the same age.
Yeah. Called
John. Not a insignificant name in Christian texts. John. So she talks about Jesus. She talks about the old king. He used to be a good Christian, right? He liked
very
the
Monty
Danes.
Python.
Yeah, right. But the current king is not a good Christian because he just wants to kill all the Danes. And she sort of and we're going to sound like a broken record, or I am here, but she is. I found her to be in a lot of ways like Thor's. It just as a person who had a very strong point of view about right and wrong in the world. Like, she was very much like, ethics, person to person, are above political alliances and agendas.
Allegiance.
Which is like a thing that you can get on board with, I think. Like, your fellow man is in trouble in front of you. And
the Good Samaritan.
Exactly, right? Surprised she didn't bring that up. And this is all great, but like, again, like, just war. I almost said human nature, but I think we've had discussions about whether war being not a natural thing, but a thing that
Edwin Starr certainly did think war was a good thing. He was asking, "What is it good for, y'all?" Right.
So, like, you didn't vote. What do you mean by that, Emily?
That's the joke from Monty Python.
You're
the king. Well, I
didn't vote for you. That's right. Okay, yeah, that's right. This is an anarcho-syndicalist commune.
Wow, that fucking hell, was that word of the day? You could have balloons popping out behind you, like, I was impressed by that, I must say. Although, of course, no anime is more Monty Python than Fate Zero.
Because of King Arthur, right?
Also because of Berserker, the Black Knight.
Oh, right, the Black Knight.
'Tis but a flesh wound.
But so I could go on, but I think my point is like, probably you can gather where I'm going. Just that, like, doing the right thing according to religion, according to, like, it's an ethical way of life that's secular, whatever. Like, it may save your soul, but war will claim your life. War, your body belongs to it, and it'll take it from you indiscriminately, regardless of these other things. So yeah, I think that here we just have another illustration of the anti-war message.
But in turn, just to throw something in there, like, I was going to bring up next about the closing moments where we see her, where she starts weeping, but then disappears.
That is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
And I think I have a theory on that.
I have a really gruesome and awful theory, but you go first.
Well, so, okay. You said before about Jesus, should never leave someone behind, but sometimes, the Lord, as I understand it, demands sacrifices of his subjects. I'm sure there are a few that you could probably mention from the Bible I'm not personally familiar with. Who was it actually that God said you had to kill his own son? I can't remember.
That would be Abraham.
Thank you very much, sir.
Kill Isaac.
There we go. So, not Abraham and Isaac here, of course, but just as an example that, it's been asked for before, that God sometimes demands people, be sacrificial in order to, perform something for the greater good. So, if indeed you do believe in the whole, Jesus path thing, divine path set out for this lady, is her sacrifice possibly intended by God as a means of trying to rekindle Thorfinn's own, better nature?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting point. It seems like it does the opposite of that.
Well, that's the thing.
Right?
It's an attempt. Because my understanding as well is that always, the idea is that we're always tempted into sin. It's not God that stops us from doing sin. Rather, God will give us the means to fight it, or, like, to try and resist it, or the education to say that it's bad.
Sure. Well, this is all predicated on human free will, Shadon. If you believe in free will, some religious people don't. But this is another fucking fucked up discussion for another day.
Oh boy, we'll leave that aside.
Yeah. But what I mean by I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Karen.
Oh no. I was 'cause I can't now. I've forgotten. So that's what I get. That's fucking what I get. All right, go ahead.
Never mind. So, yeah, indeed, when the Vikings storm the beach, the lady starts weeping, and that triggers Thorfinn's memories, which is why I just brought up then about the idea of, reigniting that spark of humanity in him. But then she vanishes. And then Thorfinn just takes a, deep sigh, and he's just like, well, I guess I got to get back to that killing, yo. Woo!
I really like that
scene.
scene.
Some English. Woo-wee!
It really
Well,
seemed like this is what I meant by like like it backfired. Like it really seems like she made him think of his dad and stuff like that, and just like his dad, she was fucking just mowed down, right? Like her town, her like it was swept away. Like nothing, she couldn't save herself. Like whatever her anti-war beliefs were. Right?
Well, I have a theory on that, but like even if it ultimately was unsuccessful, the fact the Thorfinn can still feel that memory and still have that moment in which he snaps out of his red haze, like that's still something. Like it wasn't enough to shake him out, but he has the capacity to do it, which I'm sure.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't him like giving up on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but let's talk about the lady vanishing. Here's my wild speculative theory, right? I don't think it's literal. I don't think she literally just gets swept up by the Vikings and is gone. I think she's probably dead elsewhere, like out of scene. I don't think it's actually her we're seeing. I think it's representative of Thorfinn's own perspective of her, in that she's no longer relevant. The Vikings going past have swept him up back into his normal mood set at that point of kill them all and let God sort them out, literally. So at that point, she's no longer relevant. She vanishes because she's no longer of an interest to him. She's no longer of a comfort to him.
My theory on it was, remember how that one time Askeladd was like, "We get all the women." Remember that? I thought maybe an onrushing Viking just scooped her up and grabbed her and kept running. It's where my mind went, that these brutal, assholes would, that's what they'd be.
I like my women like I like my wine, aged and tastes like oak.
Terrible.
I'm so sorry for that.
Either
shit.
way,
okay.
like I mean, what you're saying holds true. I mean, she's now, she's gone. Like her and her puppy dog and her.
Oh, you mean Joseph Joestar's dog?
Yeah, her and Doggo and the freaking bootlicker daughter have nothing to offer him anymore. That's for sure.
She's gonna be their hat in hand to Saint Peter, and he's be like, "Lady, you gone done fucked up. Nice one. Well done."
Yeah.
Boy. Right. Do you have any other talking points, Zach?
I think I have exhausted my list of notes, but I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about the patron questions.
Indeed. This is I'm actually now talks out. I know that's shocking and surprising for someone who chats as much shit as me, folks. But yeah, I've said all the talking points I want to say on the episodes thus far. Doesn't mean we've covered everything that we could have done, of course. There's probably a lot more that could be discussed. Indeed, if you have anything you want to throw into us that you noticed or felt was meaningful or impactful, then let us know. Drop us a line on Twitter, drop us in our Discord if you're a patron. Indeed, consider becoming a patron so you can have that privilege, along with making me watch heinous shit. Thank you, Salubel. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about our patron questions. So we have three that banked up over the course of these couple episodes. So I'm going to start off with Blinkaji's question, which goes as follows. To what extent do you guys reckon Askeladd has a sense of honor? And how does that tie into his philosophy on being a mercenary/pirate?
Shall you go first or shall I?
I have a thought.
Okay.
Shock horror. Sorry to spin my mouth again. But I think that Askeladd's sense of honor is mutable and variable, and I think it depends on the people he is dealing with. Take how he handled Floki. Floki, Askeladd had him measured for a mug who was trying to set me train with that, closet Viking that he had. And subsequently, he one-upped him by saying, "Oh, you think you're a deceitful trickster god? Bitch, you ain't met me. Let me show you." But then when he's talking with Thors, I, again, get the impression Askeladd had no intention of taking Thorfinn with him. That was just an accident. And it is concretely proven that we see all of the other men live. They survive. Only Thors is killed. even though it is mentioned that they could be sold as slaves, that's a second boat that they could have had to sell off as well. There was material plunder to be gained from killing all of them or even just enslaving all of them. But he was true to his word. So I think that insofar as Askeladd has a sense of honor, I think the capacity for him to have it is there, but he is a man whose sense of honor is dictated by his environment, and he plays it on an even keel. If he meets someone who's honorable, he'll be honorable -1, I reckon, is the way I would describe it.
I like it.
He'll match the honor, but then he'll take one away, so he's just a tiny little bit less honorable. But that doesn't mean he can't be honorable per se, I would think. But for him, he probably has a much more rational understanding of the world than anyone else, which is that, yeah, war ain't fair. Tough shit. I don't play by the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I have a similar opinion in that, like, I think that exists in him, right? And he's a great contrast with Thors, because I feel like over the course of, how I see Askeladd behave, episodes 4, 5, and 6, I feel like there's enough there for me to say that he does have some kind of sense of honor about him, and maybe it used to be really, really important to him. But unlike Thors, who refused to let war bend him, Askeladd wasn't strong enough, and maybe nobody's strong enough to to withstand it, and he bent, he adapted, he was concerned for his survival, and so he compromised and kept on and is now the thieving, dishonorable pirate that we see before us, the murderer.
Yeah.
But we get to see those tiny little glimpses that I think indicate that there was something there with that.
Well, if I may pose a thought to you, right? Let's say I stripped this entire show of context and just presented you with an image of teenage Thorfinn and Askeladd as he is an adult. And if I told you that they were the same person but just at different ages, I reckon you could potentially believe that.
Yeah. That's really wow. That's scary, dude. Poor Thorfinn. Don't take this path. please re-roll.
I will mold you in my own image.
Is Askeladd the sort of what's his name, the sort of Dino Golzine type figure now, molding the young man?
No, he doesn't. I mean, he's a despicable shithead, but he isn't a rapist or a paedophile, so
that we know of yet.
I mean, that's a low bar to clear, admittedly, but doing it nonetheless.
Yeah.
Well done, Askeladd. You're not entirely shit.
You've done it. Congratulations.
Yeah, your pie chart is not 100% brown.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. All right, so next question. In fact, we have two questions here from Feo Wolf. I'm going to assume it's Beowulf as in Beowulf.
Mm-hmm.
If I butchered that and mispronounced it, I apologize. I'm just going to have to option select this as we fighter game players say. First question. If circumstances were different, could Askeladd and Thors have been friends?
Yes.
Now, yes. I'm going to say yes, because I think it ties back to the answer I gave in the previous question, which is I think that Askeladd is a man who plays his relationships as reactionary, he assesses people based on, who they are, and would be honourable if the world would allow him to be that. Mm-hmm. So I think that if we twist the circumstances so much that, say, it was him and Thors fighting in the very opening battle of the show, which was the prequel battle, I could totally see them working together.
Yeah,
I think that, I think that we'll find out later. I have a strong suspicion we'll get a bit of Askeladd's history, and we'll find that he is... I mean, I've said before about the idea of the nature versus nurture, determinism versus free will thing that this show is presenting. Because one thing I forgot to mention, for all that, you'd think he'd die very quickly, Thorfinn is a very talented fighter, it turns out. Learning entirely self-taught is that, he's, again, Metal Gear Solid soldier genes. No, it's a bit much, I admit. But is that because he is literally the son of Thors, or because of his will to survive, or because of the environment he's been molded in? Is it inescapable that he becomes a murderer and a killer because his father had that capacity in him?
Yeah. The critical mass of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, but to come back to Askeladd, I reckon we'll find out a lot about his own nature versus nurture thing that drove him to be the person he is. Is he a murdering, scummy pirate because he has dealt with, or rather has been shaped by the world around him that's led him to be that way? We'll find out. But I absolutely believe that could have been true. Although, I will say that that's asking Askeladd to give a lot of his character. I think that Thors would have had to give some as well to meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you could argue that it is impossible as we know it. Like, they would have to be very different people, both of them, in order for that to have happened. But I don't think it entirely impossible.
No, I don't know. I think Askeladd in peacetime would probably be really, really different. So
he probably weighs baskets.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, if that was the case, if the circumstances were really different, he seems like he could be pretty amicable from time to. So yeah, no, I agree. I don't think Thors would have to have changed very much. If they were born in the same town. You know what I mean? And they just kind of.
You think he would have? Yeah, you think he would have been on Askeladd to make all those changes? It depends on how much you want to twist the idea.
Yeah.
It depends on how much you want to twist the idea of circumstance. But you saying about them living in the same town, but that again ties into the environment idea. Conversely, I would argue that if Thors had been born in the same environment as Askeladd, then he would turn out like him as we know now.
Right. For sure.
So basically, we're saying, fuck you, nature, fuck you, determinism. We're all about that nurture.
I know. I want to be, but we can't be completely. So.
No, yeah. It's true. All right, so final question here again from Feowulf. This is regarding episode 5. Was Askeladd just going to let Thorfinn kill him while he slept? Now, we haven't addressed this scene yet, so just to provide a brief bit of context, Thorfinn makes it into Askeladd's hut after they've done their latest round of pillaging and plundering. Askeladd is sleeping with his face facing the wall, and Thorfinn sneaks in, dagger out, and he can't do it. This is episode 5, so he hasn't killed any actual human being yet.
Mm-hmm.
But once Thorfinn actually leaves, we see that Askeladd was awake. Whether or not he was asleep and was awoken by Thorfinn's footsteps or was awake all along, we can't say. If you want my answer on this, I'm going to go with he wouldn't have. I don't think Askeladd was willing to let that happen. Or rather, I think he was willing to test him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if ultimately Thorfinn did have the capacity to kill people, then he might have been useful potentially. But also, then it could have simply just given him the incentive to kill Thorfinn there and then. He realizes he is a genuine threat. Because at the moment, I think that up until that point, episode 5, everyone treats Thorfinn as a joke or as a dog, a pet, something to laugh at, something to mock. Mm-hmm. The town fool, in their little traveling circus, so to speak. But that's the point where he realizes maybe he might be a genuine threat. So I don't think he would have let him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what he ultimately would have done is up for debate if Thorfinn had made for the killing blow.
Yeah, I think he thought that any kind of attempt by a little boy who'd never killed anyone before, that he could easily fend off. I think he wanted him to commit to it. He wanted to see if he would really actually make that intentional choice to try.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to challenge him in a duel in the open and fight him. It's another thing to kill someone in their sleep.
Cold blood.
Yeah, and so I think he wanted to see if he would do it. Because like you said, I think that the idea was brewing in Askeladd for a little while of maybe trying to use the kid for something. And I think it was... he felt it was important to find that out. But yeah, he didn't have it in him until he killed the dog and was pushed to kill those people in the battle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right. That otherwise concludes our Patreon questions. So I want to just give a quick shout out to Blinkaji and Feowulf for providing those for us.
Thank you.
If you are a current or indeed future patron of Warui Deshou, You are more than welcome in our Discord to put questions in there for the shows that we're covering. That doesn't mean Vinland Saga, it can also mean Given. And there are incoming patron suite here. Plenty of other benefits to subscribing as well, not least of which is you can request shows for us to cover specifically for you. So I'm currently covering Akiken, the Soda Waifu show, which just makes me want to drink bleach, ironically. Anyway.
I've got Kino's Journey from the early 2000s, not the new remake, but the first show. On Deck is my first show to cover. But one of us, or Vergalia, you can, if you're a Patreon subscriber at the $5 level, you can get that request in, and one of us will do an audio essay. But yeah, like Shadon said, there's tons of other perks. So just head on over to Patreon and check it out. Get in our Discord. Our Discord is fun.
Early access to our Given cast.
That's
early
right.
access to other material that we'll be doing in our own time, such as the previous Shield Hero. As I mentioned, we're going to be more stuff like later. I have a secret bonus shitty anime I'm going to be covering soon that no one will know about until it literally drops on you like a meteor from the sky.
I'm so ready for this. I can't even tell
you have no idea. You have no idea what I've seen.
Man, and you've been talking about Juice Chan. You haven't even been talking about this other shit. So you're just having like the stacked, compounding levels of awfulness in your life.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being dealt the U.S. Army Field Manual of bad anime. Great, fucking brilliant. Anyway, that otherwise brings us to our conclusion of our discussion about Vinland Saga episodes 4, 5, and 6. So again, thank you everyone so much for being patient with us while we got things back in some sort of order so we can do this stream again. We will, all being well, be back next week. I did mention before that there is a little bit of housekeeping in regards to the immediate future. So
right.
If you were here at the start of the stream, you might recall that I mentioned I now own this particular home. Now, there's a thing to note here. Currently, the utilities are paid for by my father, and that means that I have to then take ownership. Not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it means I have to transition my internet provider. And that means there could be potentially some downtime. I'm hoping it is measured in days maximum. So that way, any delay to a stream at that particular point will be outside very quickly. And it'll all be for the better as well, because I'll have a new streaming setup, I'll have a much faster internet provider, also all that good shit. So it will be worth it. But just something to bear in mind. As I have more concrete info, I will let you all know. Otherwise, Doc, do you have I know you've just put poll 2 up, but do you have any results for poll 1 thus far?
Yeah, sorry I was late on poll 2. My brain was devoted to the discussion today, not up for the multitasking. The first poll, which Mario suit is best for Bjorn? This is a great poll, I feel. Early days, we've got Tanuki leading with 60%, and Frog suit and Hammer Bro suit splitting the remaining 40% of the vote, with the Cat suit, the newest suit introduced in, I believe it was 3D World for the Wii U, languishing still at 0%. So Cat suit people, get out and vote. This is very important. Important question for me, because I just feel the Frog suit is so underrated as a Mario suit, and Bjorn in a frog suit would be incredible. In all, like him just regular hanging out with Askeladd, also him berserk because he jumps far distances. And just imagining him in a frog suit jumping.
When you say that, like I've mentioned before, like, Metal Gear Solid, and there's obviously games you can play where you can put in like joke outfits and cutscenes and no one changes their reactions. I want that to be the case with Vinland Saga. I want Bjorn in that scene where they negotiate with the Danish emissary, and he's just wearing the frog suit, and no one bats an eyelid at it.
That would be amazing. I would love that so much.
That would be the shit, right? But anyway, unfortunately, future Vinland Saga fan fiction will have to wait, folks, because that is all we have for this particular evening. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you along here, and your patience is immensely appreciated with the recent issues we've had. Mm-hmm. We should be back to usual now. As I say, any future interruptions, we'll give you advance warning on. We will be back next week with Vinland Saga Episode 7. If you're not aware, by the way, because I don't think this was announced on this particular stream, we are now slowly releasing a backlog of our Given episodes free to the public. Mm-hmm. But if you want early access to those to catch up with the discussion that's happening with the episodes, do feel free to subscribe for $3 or more for that. I believe it's $3 here. Or is it the 5?
It's the 5, just because of
The 5.
the two-man production required.
$5. So yeah, subscribe for that $5. Catch up with all that and all our other goodies coming along. If you've enjoyed this, by the way, on iTunes or SoundCloud, so that's where you're hearing it from, please do feel free to leave us a rating and/or review, as it helps our discoverability. If you're on YouTube, drop us a subscribe. That's always welcome as well. Otherwise, from myself and from Doc, thank you all very much again for joining us this fine evening. And as we're always want to do on this particular show, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe. And a very good night.
Good night, everyone.